Good evening, everyone. It really is a special honor to be here this evening and to moderate and facilitate what I think will be an important discussion, especially focusing on the future of the city of Binghamton and our region for the next 4 years. As Jennifer mentioned, the candidates did receive the questions about a week ago.
Yes, 6 days.
All right. So you have a sense of what you'll be asked. I don't have to ask all the questions. I intend to ask most of the questions. I may deviate a bit from the questions as far as the order. I may also do some follow-up questions, and there's a potential that I may, emphasize may, ask a question that wasn't on the prepared list. But I think those questions will be saved for a future radio debate coming up October 30th. As far as the timekeeping, we will have a member of the chamber staff here at the table that will make sure that the candidates know how long they have. Now, as far as the structure of the debate, this is a question and answer format. So I will present a question initially to one candidate, and then the second candidate will have time to rebut the first candidate's answer. And then candidate A will be allowed to briefly respond to candidate B's rebuttal. Now, what happened just a few minutes ago, we had a coin toss in the room over there, and that coin toss determined that Tarik Abdelazim will make the first introductory remarks, and Mayor Richard David will field the first question. Also, toward the end of the debate, Tarik Abdelazim will make the first closing remarks, and then Mayor Richard David will make the final closing remarks. As far as just basically what we will be doing, the questions, as Jennifer already indicated, will have a business focus. There, I think, are approximately 24 questions that I will be choosing from. Again, we ask that people don't jeer or cheer. I'm sure some people may make an occasional reaction, but for the most part, please contain your reactions so we can keep this a civil discourse. Also, we're asking the candidates not to interrupt each other. Is that acceptable? Okay. I'm just saying this is different than talk radio. So, with that in mind, I'm going to ask Tarik Abdelazim to do his opening remarks, and then we'll hear opening remarks from Binghamton Mayor Richard David. Thank you very much.
Just to clarify, there was time.
Yes. Okay. All right. So, and we will not have color-coded cards, but his, yes, 30 seconds and 50 seconds. Yes. Thank you.
Thank you for coming tonight. 4 years ago, we hired a chief executive. It's evaluation time. Storms test leadership skills. What we saw from Ray during Snowstorm Stella was struggling. He exercised poor judgment and made unilateral decisions that put people's lives at risk. The cost of the project of the joint sewage treatment plant has ballooned to $365 million under Rich's direction. And in the coming years, rates may have to go up 200 to 300%. 2016 was the most violent year in decades. In the police department, turnover is high, morale is low. There is a problem, but spending $500,000 on a network of license plate readers is not the solution. The greatest threat to the values of our homes and the safety of our neighborhoods is the coming tidal wave of costly flood insurance premiums. FEMA has us on the clock, yet over 4 years, Rich hasn't budgeted a single nickel to prepare for or address the threat. We are a community facing complicated challenges. Our neighborhoods and housing values are in decline. We're losing too many loved ones to a horrible disease. Half our children live in poverty. We face a lack of jobs and dwindling opportunity. We need a chief executive with vision, experience, and leadership. I don't rely on pretty rhetoric. I'm not a career public relations expert. I have a beard. I'm not a traditional politician. Here's who I am: an award-winning public servant, a creative policy wonk, a fiscally responsible executive, and a national housing expert. I look forward to tonight's discussion. I thank you all for being here, and more importantly, for caring for our shared future. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. David.
Well, good evening, everyone. Thanks for the opportunity to be here this evening, and thank you for the Chamber of Commerce for hosting this event. I'd like to start off really on a positive note in regards to this campaign. Over the summer in August, the City of Binghamton celebrated the grand opening of a 10-unit facility on Pine Street for homeless veterans. And I bring this up for a couple of reasons. One is, it's something that I'm very proud of, and we should all be proud of. And two, it's a symbol of what City Hall can do. City Hall can touch the lives of all of us. And at that grand opening, I had the opportunity to talk to an Army veteran named John, who was talking to me about having a place to call home, having an address to put on his resume, having a place where his family could come to visit. And he was one of 10 individuals that now have a roof over their heads, thanks to the City of Binghamton and our partners. City Hall is a place where people can come together. It's a place where we can work to get things done. And over the course of this campaign, this debate, I look forward to talking about our successes and our accomplishments in reducing taxes, investing in our neglected infrastructure in our parks and neighborhoods, and what we're doing to invest in our police department. I think our track records speak for itself. My actions speak for itself. And when you compare or look at this administration's results versus the rhetoric or lack of action by the previous administration, you have quite a stark contrast.
Thank you, Mayor David. The coin toss gives the first question to Mayor David, and our first question is explain your thoughts on the role of the mayor of the City of Binghamton as it relates to business development and business retention.
Sure. The role of the mayor of the City of Binghamton, you don't create the jobs. You work to create an environment that is attractive for business owners, investors, developers, and residents. And we focus on that by looking at 5 areas. And that's public safety, infrastructure, economic development, parks and neighborhoods. Residents don't want to live in areas that are unsafe. Business owners don't want to invest in areas that have crumbling infrastructure, or high taxes, or quality of life issues in our parks and neighborhoods. So without question, one of our top focuses has to be on lowering taxes and dealing with the massive skyrocketing taxes that took place under the previous administration, which my opponent was a part of. We've worked very hard to provide tax relief. This is the 2nd year for homeowners, 3rd year for commercial property owners that we provided tax relief in the City of Binghamton. Without question, we are investing significantly with regards to our neglected infrastructure, roads, bridges, gateways, parking facilities, etc. So the role of the mayor is to work to better the environment and work with our partners at the county, state, and federal level to secure funding and other resources needed to invest in this community.
Mr. Abdelazim, your thoughts about the role of the mayor in the City of Binghamton as it relates to business development and retention.
Absolutely. I think there are a few things that investors are looking for. Investors need certainty. Right now, we have a great deal of uncertainty both with the sewer rates, again, because of the ballooning cost of that project, as well as the flood insurance premium. Investors need to know that there's leadership with vision. Where's the vision? Has anybody heard of it before? Where's the job creating strategies? I'm still waiting to hear that plan. And there actually is a community vision that was developed by many of you here in the city. It's called Blueprint Binghamton, and it's sitting on the shelf for the last 4 years collecting dust.
Mayor David, a rebuttal.
Well, I think that's, when you talk about vision, that's interesting, because over the course of this campaign, all you have heard from my opponent simply is attacks on my record and this administration. Not once has he offered any sort of original ideas, platform, concept, other than to attack the results that this administration has put in place.
Second question will go first to Tarik Abdelazim, and this is sort of open-ended. What do you think are the most important issues facing the city of Binghamton today?
I don't think anyone would disagree with me in this room. The lack of jobs, the climbing rates of poverty, crippling levels of poverty, particularly among our children. We have a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity with $500 million on the table. Any of you know how that's being spent? I don't. There are threats to our housing values, threats to our neighborhood, vacant blighted properties. You can come in and swing a wrecking ball, but are you arresting the decline? Does anyone feel that our housing values are appreciated? I don't. There's a high cost of flood insurance. Entire housing markets can be devastated if these flood insurance premiums are triggered, and when they are. That is an incredible threat to our local property tax base. It's an issue that unfortunately should not have come up during a campaign. It should have been discussed for the last few years, working with the community to eliminate the uncertainty that they're going to face. And then there's the threats to our residents. We know that crime and drugs is a serious issue. I know we're going to get into this. I think my opponent's approach has failed. There's also the serious addiction crisis and the opioid epidemic that is ripping through our communities. There needs to be more creative solutions. There needs to be leadership with vision. I've done that before working for the city of Binghamton, and I hope to do it again, Mr. Mayor.
Mayor David, the most important issues facing the city of Binghamton today?
Well, I think there are a number of issues that are top priorities. I think public safety is a top priority. I think dealing with the heroin and opioid epidemic is a top priority. I think dealing with our taxes, which we are finally doing, is a top priority. I think investing in our infrastructure or dealing with our infrastructure that has been neglected for a long period of time is a priority. Improving the quality of life in our parks and neighborhoods is a priority. Addressing homelessness and poverty is a priority. There are a number of things that collectively have been top priorities for this administration that we can point to results.
Mr. Abdelazim, final thoughts on the matter of the most important issues facing Binghamton?
Again, jobs, jobs, jobs. As I travel the country as a national expert helping communities deal with vacant and abandoned properties, it is the same crises over and over again, and we have a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, and there's not much being done about it.
The next question will be directed first to Mayor David. After hitting a significant high, the residential and commercial tax rates in Binghamton have gradually been going down over the last few years. Would you be able to accomplish your goals for the next 4 years, stay on budget, and continue to lower city property taxes, or would you expect to have to increase taxes in the next 4 years?
Well, first of all, thank you for acknowledging that. You're right. Okay. Thank you for acknowledging that commercial and residential taxes in the city of Binghamton are finally decreasing for the first time in 20 years. That didn't happen by itself. That happened as a result of a solid team and effort put in place. I've been reducing lowering commercial and residential taxes for the last 3 years. So our direction is to continue to provide tax relief to residents, but also building up the ranks of the police department and addressing neglected infrastructure, paying down our debt, and putting in place a plan to prevent the massive swings in tax increases that occurred under the previous administration. So with certainty, we would not even be having this conversation with regards to tax relief under the previous administration. There was no plan in place whatsoever to protect residents from double-digit and massive tax increases year after year while having to raid the fund balance to balance the budget.
Mr. Abdelazim, looking ahead to the next 4 years with the goals that you have in mind for the city of Binghamton, would you be able to accomplish those goals and continue to stay on budget and hopefully continue to lower taxes, or would you anticipate tax increases would be likely in the next 4 years?
No, my commitment to folks in this room and everyone in the city is that we can have flat taxes for 4 years under my leadership. Look across the courtyard, it's the tale of two cities. The Democrats handed the keys over to Rich David, with the city in the strongest financial position it's been in decades. Over here, the Republicans handed over the keys to the county to the Democrats with it sliding towards financial ruin. Here's the fact. 6 of the last 7 years, tax rates have been less than 1%. We fixed the problem. Everything that Rich says that he's doing was because of the hard work and the incredible opportunity we provided.
Mayor David, a rebuttal.
Well, that's simply not true. Bottom line is, if you look at the budgets, there have been massive tax increases. And I find it interesting, there's selective factoids that are being pulled out. Why don't you look at what the entire record of the previous administration is? 52% increases while cutting our police force. So the savings that you're talking about are built on overtaxing residents and gutting the police department. That's not responsible, and that is not providing results to residents.
Next question will be directed first to Mr. Abdelazim. The Chamber has heard from a number of its members that keeping up to date and in line with code can be very burdensome. There are a number of codes on the books in the city of Binghamton that can hinder business development. Under your leadership as mayor, what do you believe the role should be in connection to code enforcement, and do you expect you would be able to make any changes?
There's zoning code, there's land use codes, there's housing and building codes, there's fire codes. Right? These are put in place to protect the safety and health of our residents. They're put in place to ensure that an adult bookstore doesn't open up next to your home after you've just made significant investments. Right? There's a reason for this. We can just look to Houston and the challenges that they experienced after Hurricane Harvey. What happened in the communities that do not employ code based on a vision. But we need to make sure that they don't hinder investment. And as director of planning, I took that very seriously. I had a Republican lawyer who has been doing review projects and coming to the city for decades, said that I put together the most competent and professional planning staff that she'd ever seen. We depoliticized the process. We told the mayor, if anyone calls you, just hang up and say good luck with the process. Right? It's not who you know. It's every set of rules is going to be applied fairly and consistently to every person. I think it's important that we also look at some of the codes that we did through the Blueprint Binghamton. We had the national experts come in to help us redevelop our Main Street from city limit to city limit, and to work with many of you in this community, doing design charrettes and others. Bob was there, right? And we developed a predictable pathway of development that met the community's vision. The mayor ripped those pages out of the comprehensive plan before he sent it down to council for approval. And I think that is the example of decisions that are being made today that are seriously undermining the future of our community.
Mayor David, under your leadership as mayor, what is your role in connection with code enforcement? Do you expect you would make any changes in the next 4 years?
Well, that's a wide-ranging question. So let me give you some specific examples. Let's talk about the pink sticker that's on, I think that's currently required for bulk item disposal of garbage. That's an example of a bureaucratic barrier that has hindered the cleanliness of our community. Put in place in 2011, we worked to eliminate that as part of the 2018 budget. One of the first decisions I made at City Hall on January 2nd was to make City Hall's business hours 9 to 5. I think some of you would be shocked to learn that City Hall was only open until 3:45, some offices, and was closed, many of these offices, during lunchtime. It's about moving and positioning City Hall to a business-friendly environment. And so that is the approach that we would have to put in place to deal with these barriers that have hindered many of the businesses in our community.
Mr. Abdelazim, a rebuttal.
Yeah, I don't even know where he came up with half of that information. It's not true. But I will say one more thing, is that the other thing we did as director of planning is that we actually established a work group. So any developer could come beforehand, everyone was at the table, and so they understood that it was going to be a predictable pathway towards approval.
This question will first be directed to Mayor David. The public perception is that there is a significant parking problem in the city of Binghamton. Potential patrons decide not to come downtown, in some cases to shop or dine, because they don't believe they'll find a parking spot. We hear that from some people. How will you, or how are you in this case, addressing the parking issues, the parking challenges downtown, or at least what's perceived to be a parking problem, and work to make downtown more accessible?
Sure, there are parking challenges downtown, primarily because we've taken one of the 3 parking ramps offline. We demolished the Collier Street parking ramp. The reason we had to do that is because that is another example of city infrastructure that had been neglected, that can continuously be kicked down the road. And when we tried to salvage it, it was simply too far gone. So we had to work to demolish that ramp. We have a surface lot in place right now. It's just under 100 parking spots. We initiated a parking study downtown. We've added approximately 50 spots downtown for surface parking in areas that previously were unavailable. We eliminated the ridiculous back-end parking on Core Street, which was a source of frustration for business owners. And most importantly, we're in the process of vetting 3 firms right now to construct a $20 million project that will include a 350 parking spot facility at 7 Holly Street. So perception is reality. I can tell you that as somebody who lives downtown, works downtown, is invested in downtown, I'm intimately familiar with the challenges that exist, which is a direct result, again, of the inaction by the previous administration. What we saw in Johnson City, we never want to see Binghamton with a ramp collapsing. A portion of the Water Street ramp fell off shortly after the previous administration took office. You would have thought that would have been a red flag and we need to do more. We have multiple projects in place at the State Street ramp and the Water Street ramp, investing millions in addressing structural deficiencies. So there's a lot that we're doing in regards to that issue.
Mr. Abdelazim, what would you do to try to address either the real or perceived problems of parking in downtown Binghamton?
Well, let's review the record. First thing this mayor wanted to do his first year was do an end around local and state laws, spend $500,000 to pave over Metro Center Courtyard to build 10 spaces for a downtown business budget. He got caught, he bullied his critics, but we held him accountable. We said, actually implement the parking management plan. The problem is that you can't even implement the management plan. You're supposed to develop a price structure that incentivizes short-term parking curbside, so we get customers patronizing our businesses and long-term parking in our ramps. Can't even get that right.
Mayor David, a rebuttal.
This is like flashbacks of the previous administration where what you hear is this nice, well-put-together rhetoric, but the results completely are contradictory. People that live downtown, work downtown, you know that this is an area that has been neglected for a long period of time. There is, quite frankly, more being done now than ever before. Those are the facts.
The next question is directed first to Mr. Abdelazim. It appears there are some new restaurants popping up in the city on an almost daily basis. We see a lot of activity with new eateries. Well, this is good for commerce. Downtown core seems to be lacking clustered shops or retail destinations today. Having a center for shopping downtown would help keep patrons in the city for longer periods of time. Do you have a downtown master plan, and what would you do to create a cohesive commercial retail district?
Absolutely. I will refer to it once more, that we do have a downtown master plan, and it is in Blueprint Binghamton, sitting on a shelf somewhere in City Hall gathering dust. Many of you worked to develop that plan, and I don't think we invite citizens to think about our future and then dismiss it and put it somewhere in the shadows in City Hall. But let's look at some of the strategies that work successfully across this country. Right? Too often the status quo is that city leaders will sit back and then respond to development projects that come forward. I think that's backwards. We should be working together, developing a vision, and then going out to the development community and saying, here's what we want, right? Who wants to be a partner, and what is the right fit? That is the approach successful communities are taking all across this country. You almost have to curate your downtown. And there are tools that we can use. There is a $1.5 million fund that is sitting almost idle by Binghamton Local Development Corporation. I wanted to go online and see what the status was. We used to put those records and reports all the time online. They've all been pulled down, a pattern of a lack of transparency. So I had to actually FOIL for the treasurer's reports. Very few loans that are going out. We should be customizing our financial incentives and our programs to get the kind of downtown we want. And if I'm mayor, we're going to prioritize retail as one of those opportunities.
Mayor David, do you have a downtown master plan, and what do you intend to do to create a cohesive commercial retail district downtown?
Well, first of all, there's a couple of things. One is the concept that the administration isn't moving forward on a comprehensive plan is ridiculous. every action that we take is consistent with some area that's outlined within the City of Binghamton's master plan or comprehensive plan. But with regards to downtown, downtown needs to be diverse. Look what's happening with retail across the country with regards to Amazon and the way that retail is changing. Look what's happening at the Oakdale Mall. Downtown Binghamton will never be the sole retail destination that it was in the 60s and 70s. We need to become more diverse, and that's what we're working to accomplish.
Mr. Abdelazim, a rebuttal.
I am fine. Let's reserve time for the next question.
And the next question is directed first to Mayor David. There are a number of different grants and programs available on a state and federal level to assist cities with economic development. Elmira and Watkins Glen have won the Downtown Revitalization Initiatives. Governor Cuomo recently appeared in Johnson City to announce the Greater Binghamton Fund. What are some ways that you plan on taking advantage of the Greater Binghamton funds? And also, would Binghamton at some point in the future be in the running for a downtown revitalization grant? Also, what other grants or funds would your administration pursue?
Sure, so a couple of things with that. When Governor Cuomo came to town, he was announcing something that was created locally. Binghamton, Johnson City, and DeKalb. We worked together to create that fund for our communities. And the governor basically said, you know what, this is a good idea, I'm going to support it. So that's something that this administration worked to create, and we will certainly be able to access that. But again, with regards to state grants, prior to me becoming mayor, the City of Binghamton mayor wasn't even part of the REDC. The governor specifically excluded the previous administration because we're such a poor relationship. So one of the things that I needed to do was rebuild that bridge, and as a result, we have had tens of millions of dollars in state and federal grants coming into the City of Binghamton, money that previously was not accessible. So we have done a great job, frankly, of securing grants, whether it's federal grants for FEMA buyouts, whether it's state grants for infrastructure or for housing projects or for stabilizing neighborhoods. So we have a great track record. We will continue to do that. And with regards to our plan to access that money, I mean, that's something that's currently underway right now. We're going to secure as much of that as possible. And I think with regards to DRI, you're going to see smaller communities across the state, or across the southern tier rather, receive that because we are getting this $20 million fund.
Mr. Abdelazim, how would you take advantage of the Greater Binghamton Fund initiative? Also, future potential grants from either Albany or Washington.
So first, I just want to correct a couple lies. One, the rules were that the largest municipality will be able to have their leader on the council. That's County Union. Secondly, I was one of the only non-elected officials that served on the energy work group of the Southern Tier Regional Economic Development Council. To suggest that the city wasn't involved, we had our economic development director, another work group, is just misinformation. I will do exactly what I did as director of plans, which is be the most aggressive in bringing back grants to the city to meet priorities that have been identified by the residents, and that's exactly what I'm going to do as mayor. I will say, real quick, we need to make sure that all of you have equal access to these resources. That's a problem. I know Harvey Stenger is leading an incredibly hardworking team, but as mayor, I'm going to challenge them. That's what you all need, to make sure that everybody has equal access to these resources, not two sets of rules with two groups of people, but one set of rules for everybody.
Mayor David, a rebuttal.
Well, now we're getting into separating fact from fiction. So the Town of Union supervisor still is a member of the REDC. Yes, so is the mayor of the City of Binghamton. And there's a reason that happened, because I went and I fought for that. I said it wasn't right, it wasn't fair. I recognize you didn't get along with the previous administration, but Binghamton deserves a seat at the table, and we have one now because of the actions that I took. You can't just sit there and wait for things to be handed to you. You have to be proactive. You have to take action to get things done.
Our next question is directed first to Mr. Abdelazim. Over the last few years, we've seen an explosion of student housing in the City of Binghamton. We have thousands and thousands of students now living just a few blocks, within a few blocks radius of here. There has been public feedback to the chamber in regards to a lack of affordable housing. as well as options for professionals who might not be interested or might not be able to purchase a home. What to help address the infrastructure challenges that are faced by the city?
I'm going to take some of this time to put the rest as finances and taxes, right? I mean, we can go back and back and back. Lucci raised taxes 52% during his 8 years. And when he was his partner, 28% tax rates over 4 years, using an average of $3 million from the general fund. What did that get us? A city sliding towards bankruptcy. We didn't have to pass tax rates. Yes, it was difficult, it was challenging, but that wasn't all we did, and we handed the city over to the mayor with $9.5 million in it. But look, here's the thing. It got even better for Rich, because the two largest drivers of the local property tax base are health insurance and pension. They went up $7 million when the Democrats were in office. They went down $3 million when Rich was in office. There's no wizardry here. He's not the Harry Potter of local government finances. Did he pass that on to you as tax breaks? No, he didn't. He invested in infrastructure of life. I believe that we need to make those investments. But I think that there have been reckless ones made, and that they haven't used creative financing strategies to actually create a better outcome. That's the difference. But look, there are serious concerns with the joint sewage treatment plant. There are serious concerns with our flood walls, right? The infrastructure is not just roads. But let me tell you something. The magic is over, right? So in 2016, the mayor budgeted $4.5 million for streets, chip street reconstruction, no thing. After the election, after all this pretty campaign literature, you get $2.1 million.
Mayor David, infrastructure for the next 4 years, what would you do to improve infrastructure that still needs attention?
Well, I think without question, it's undeniable that this administration has focused more on infrastructure than the previous one. And frankly, we make street reconstruction a priority, bridge reconstruction, parking facilities, our roads, our bridges, our gateways. We've done more than 16 miles of streets this year compared to 3 miles of streets in 2010. We've done more streets in 4 years than the previous administration did in 8.
Mr. Abdelazim, rebuttal.
Yeah, when you spend all the money that's come to you, you can do that. But let's be clear, the overwhelming amount of money that comes for our bridges and our gateways, that's federal money, that's matches state money, it's absolutely linked to metropolitan transportation study. Again, that's done by a coalition of municipal leaders. That work continued in the past, it will continue in going forward.
It didn't continue in the past because our streets have been neglected. There are residents in this city who feel that their street hasn't been done. There are residents in this city who feel their streets haven't been done in 10, 20, 30, 40 years. There is a reason for that. The previous administration, that was not even a word in your vocabulary, infrastructure. You didn't even want to talk about the topic. You wanted to shift to something else. The reality is our bridges are being done. Our streets are being done. Our parking facilities are being done. We weren't able to sell those colors we wanted in time. But with regards to infrastructure, you've seen it in your neighborhoods. It's an undeniable fact that we are focusing more on infrastructure than has ever been done before.
Mr. Abdelazim, brief.
Yeah, I absolutely have to. Perhaps the mayor forgot that we had 3 historic floods, and that we spent millions of dollars repairing our infrastructure, and that none of that came on the backs of the local taxpayers. We were very diligent, and we were able to pull all that dollars back from FEMA. And to suggest that bridges and gateways aren't funded by BMTS and federal dollars is just ridiculous.
So always an excuse about why you weren't able to do something. Now we're really getting down to the facts of this.
The next question, directed to Mayor David. The city is peppered with residential and commercial blight. Whether it's the north side, south side, east side, west side there, our spot. Some people view blight as a growing cancer. Over the last few years, the city has worked on addressing the existing blight, but clearly more needs to be done. As mayor for the next 4 years, what would you do to continue to address blight? And also, importantly, what would be the plan for the properties where demolished and empty lots now exist?
Sure. Well, again, Bob, thank you for acknowledging the basic fact that there is a lot being done to address blight. The two most things I hear from residents have to do with demolitions and blight. We have been very successful in securing state and federal grants for blight. And yes, after we demolish these properties. Where we can have economic activity or development, that's something we want to do. But some of these properties are located in flood-prone areas where there's not going to be rebuilding. It's going to be green space. Some of these properties are landlocked by other homes where they're just going to expand their yards, or there's going to be a garden or something along those lines. In areas where we can consolidate parcels together, we do. Look what's going on on the north side with the Big Lots Plaza. Secured a restoring New York grant from the state, $400,000+ to demolish the plaza, working with the Binghamton Housing Authority, an affordable housing project. And we're looking at taking other properties as well. 7072 4th Street downtown is currently a green space that was home of the illegal occupied Binghamton protest. There wanted to be a permanent green space. We're putting that property back on the tax rolls and have a $5 million plan to address that property as well. So where we can have additional development with vacant properties, we're looking to do so. We're working with Broome County, put together a deal in place where these properties don't go to the auction process, where we can demolish these properties, and now we're working on ones that we can rehabilitate.
Mr. Abdelazim, your plan to tackle blight in the next 4 years, and also to try to find something to fill in the properties that ultimately are cleared.
Yeah, well, this is what I get paid to do, tackle blight and vacant properties. This is what I did as the director of housing. Last I checked, 90 properties was more than 60 properties. Last I checked, building new homes on vacant lots for seniors, first-time home buyers, to work with residents and gardens, pocket parks, is a plan for redevelopment. That's exactly what we did. But again, just the numbers. The mayor had to pull $750,000 from the city's big bank, so that's on your bill, to carry out those demolitions. All the work that I did, zero local tax dollars. That's the difference.
Mayor David, a rebuttal.
Well, without question, there's a lot of restrictions that come with federal money. So we have ramped up our demolition of properties because there's blight everywhere in the city. And when I go door to door and I talk to residents, everybody can point to a house in their home or in their neighborhood where there's blight. And if you're the one that has to live by it, it's simply not acceptable for me to continue to kick that can down the road. It's about taking action and delivering results for you.
The next question will initially be directed to Mr. Abdelazim. New York State consistently is ranked as one of the hardest states in the nation to successfully conduct business. Right now, New York is ranked 49th. Many of the reasons that cause this challenging business climate are out of the control of the mayor of Binghamton. But taking that into account, what are some ways that you would work to make the city of Binghamton stand out in the crowd in order to attract new businesses or encourage existing businesses to expand here?
Sure, just quick, to finish up on that last conversation, there were millions of dollars available to the state for demolition, and Rich didn't take advantage of it. Syracuse, millions of dollars, Schenectady, millions of dollars, working with their land bank. So it's not that there were restrictions and that the money was available. It was there. There's not vision, experience, and leadership. In regards to how do we make Binghamton stand out, we have to recognize that businesses are not just picking communities based on the regulatory environment. They're also picking communities based on whether they believe they can recruit the employees. And if we look at the market demographic studies, it shows again and again what the young professionals want, right? They want to see an administration with values, an inclusive community, a tolerant community, a sustainable community. They want to see an exciting and bold vision. They want to see the built environment walkable. They want to make sure there's green spaces, that it's resilient, public art is celebrated, right? So those are exactly the kind of items that I will do. I have done, and I'll do it again. But I think we can do some more, right? And this is where we need to be a bit bold. We need to be willing to take a little risk with $500 million on the table. One, we should establish an artist in residency program, right? We provide housing for artists, and they contribute to our neighborhoods, work with our youth. We need to think about bringing back the Yagata Regatta. We're always so afraid of the waters. Let's also make sure we can celebrate it. We need to activate our commercial spaces. Binghamton Plaza, Charles Street Business Park. That should be the hemp processing facility in upstate New York, and we should build from there. And finally, we're going to be the most open and interactive government in the country. We are not going to just engage or allow citizens to participate, but we're going to try new avenues like participatory budgeting. That's how we're going to stand out.
Mayor David, what can the city administration do to help the city of Binghamton stand out from the rest in attracting new business or encouraging the existing businesses to grow here?
Sure, let's finish that last part of the conversation with regards to the land bank. Check the record, folks. No one has been more aggressive and received more funding from the Broome County Land Bank in the city of Binghamton. We are much further ahead than any of the other neighboring municipalities. So let's talk about what we can do to raise Binghamton's profile. I gave you an example at the start of this debate with regards to housing homeless veterans. We received national recognition for that. We've received statewide recognition for being designated as a clean energy community. Compare that to what recognition we got under the previous administration for the divisive political stunts that my opponent was part of, the illegal Occupy Binghamton camp. Is that something that elevated our profile and made downtown Binghamton attractive for businesses and residents? That illegal camping for 2 months. I lived downtown. I worked downtown through that. I had to listen to the banjos and the ukuleles and all the singing and watch people defecating and vomiting on that green space. Those were some of the things that Binghamton was known for under the previous administration. Not anymore.
Mr. Abdelazim.
If you have to spend the majority of your rebuttal on Occupy, then it means you can't really answer the question.
The next question is directed to Mayor David. Initially, the greater Binghamton region continues to have some of the highest crime rates in upstate New York. Some parts of Binghamton are struggling more than others today. Patrons, of course, are less likely to visit businesses in those areas if they have the stigma of having a high crime rate. So as mayor, looking ahead to the next 4 years, what would you do to tackle crime across the city of Binghamton?
Well, I did give you 2 specific examples on that past question, but this perhaps is one of the most important topics that we should be talking about. The previous administration, and I have been vocal about this in the previous campaign and every day up until now, the decision to cut 20 officers from the City of Binghamton Police Department was not a tough decision, it was the wrong decision. And it compromised our department's ability to keep people safe. We can have a debate about what the best use is for our police department, but right now, we are not operating at a baseline level where we have enough resources to be proactive, to do community policing. What happened in the past was unfortunate and had a negative impact and lowered our defenses, allowed criminals and drug dealers to set up shop in our community. And we have worked every year to build back the ranks of our department. But make no mistake, that decision has a negative impact, and we are cleaning up that mess today. And my opponent doesn't want to talk about those issues, about cutting the police department. I've never said that adding officers is a silver bullet. But we have to have a baseline of having enough resources in order to address the very serious issues of crime in our community.
Mr. Abdelazim, what would you do to deal with the crime issue in the next 4 years?
Sure. First off is that the police chief sat on the commission that met over a year. And he told all of us, business leaders, former council members, union representatives, that those reductions and right-sizing the police force would not compromise its ability to keep the community safe. I believe the police chief then, and I still believe him now. Look, there's something wrong is happening. We can't even keep the new officers that we're training. We pay to train them, and then they're leaving to other departments in the region or upstate New York. I don't know what's going on, but we need to fix it. And I will invest in the root causes of crime. I agree with Republican DA Steve Cornwell, who draws a connection between humane treatment for those suffering from addiction to a drop in crime. That's the same kind of approach I'm going to bring investing in youth without hope that we're losing to gangs, as well as a lack of jobs for those that are experiencing crippling poverty.
Mayor David, your rebuttal.
Sure, you say you believe the police chief then and you still believe him now. But right now he says we don't have enough officers and we need to add officers. So let's be very clear about that one point from the Binghamton chief of police. The other point is, I wonder if he told you this as part of a condition for him to be appointed chief. I wonder if he made that one of the conditions as part of his job, because this was happening at the same time that he was promoted. You went down to Binghamton City Council and you were the one that advocated for cutting police officers. And that had a disastrous consequence in our community which we are still dealing with today.
Thank you, Mayor David. The next question, drug abuse, especially opioid addiction, remains a very serious problem across the country and here in Binghamton as well. There are so many overdoses, many overdose deaths over the last few years. From the outside, many people might perceive this to be more of a social issue, but it also has a big impact on local businesses. Employers, in many cases, are having a difficult time finding applicants who can pass a drug test. And in some cases, employers find themselves in a moral dilemma if they find an employee who has an addiction issue. As mayor, what steps would you take to address drug abuse and addiction in the city of Binghamton?
Yes, there have been far too many of us that have been impacted by this horrific disease. I see it in every community I travel. This is a national public health emergency. We need teamwork, we need urgency, and we need compassion. Three things we don't often see in politics today. But I wanted to commend and show commend a couple of our local officials that have done just that. Don Lombardo, Front Action. They have worked together and they have brought an incredible opportunity for our region, bringing state resources and potential treatment facility into a wing of the Rural Developmental Center. I applaud them, and I think every public official needs to get off the sideline, needs to stop being silent, and make sure that the county legislature does not throw away an incredible resource that can protect and save lives here in our community. There are other things that we can do. I have committed $200,000 of the Community Development Block Grant. This is a federal grant we receive every year to support two efforts. One, education efforts. There's some incredible groups doing wonderful stuff. Truth Farm, BOAC, Dope Without Dope. But we need to amplify their efforts because we'll never be able to marshal the resources we need until we break the stigma of addiction. Education is key. I'm also going to support funds for building drug-free, supportive housing for those who are struggling with addiction and want to increase their chances of success. I did it before for those who are homeless. We're going to do it again for those who are suffering from this horrible disease.
Mayor David, looking ahead to the next 4 years, what steps would you pursue to address drug abuse and addiction issues in our city?
Sure, my opponent says that he's done it before and he'll do it again, but he didn't do it before. The opioid crisis did not start on January 1st, 2014. When given the opportunity in the mayor's office and as director of planning, housing, and community development, this was not on your radar screen at all. Let me tell you, one of the first decisions I made in March, with less than 100 days, was to have police officers carry Narcan. And we don't know how many lives have been saved because of that decision. Why didn't you do that? There are many things that could have been done by the previous administration.
Mr. Abdelazim, rebuttal.
Just don't politicize this. We all know that this ruptured onto the national scene in the last 3 to 4 years, right? Did anybody know about this 10 years ago? Right? It was in the shadows. It's now come out to the open. In the last 3 or 4 years, we've had a much better understanding of it. But look, there's one other thing, is that I would put the city, sign the city on as a party to the county's lawsuit against the pharmaceutical companies. Our fire and our police are out there every day saving lives, and I think we need to stand together and make it clear that we are also incurring costs in trying to protect people from this disease.
Again, another excuse, another deflection. I knew early on in my tenure that we needed to do something. That's why we reached out to nonprofit providers like Fairview Recovery Services and put in a program in place to guide people from short-term care to long-term care. We're funding that through CDBG money. Also partnering with District Attorney Cornwell on a overdose investigator to go after the drug dealers and have them be charged with more serious crimes or drug dealers who sell poisons that kill our families and our children.
Let's move to the next question. This is directed first to Mayor David. As mayor, how important in your view is it to work with both Republicans and Democrats? Right now, of course, City Council dominated by Republicans and a Democrat who's on record as supporting you. How is your relationship these days with the other party? How does that affect your interactions with City Council and others within the city?
I think this is an important question because when I was first elected, Democrats had the majority majority control of Binghamton City Council. And for my first 2 years, the only way for anything to be done was for Democratic council members to cross party lines and to support my agenda and vision for the city. And they did that because I offer the people's agenda, Binghamton residents' agenda. There isn't a democratic way to collect your garbage or recycle. I focus on issues and work together in a bipartisan manner to get things done. And that's one of the many reasons why, given the choice between us, a member of your own party, the leader on Democratic City Council is endorsing me over you. And this isn't just at Binghamton City Council. It's building relationships at the county level, at the state level, working with our Democratic governor, Democratic Attorney General, Democratic Controller. I have great relationships because I focus on doing the job of the people, not on these divisive stunts and focusing on personal and ideological issues at the state and national level.
Mr. Abdelazim, as a Democrat, with the prospect of 4 years, at least initially, dealing with a city council of 5 out of 7 members who are Republicans, and one of the 2 Democrats who has supported your opponent, how would you work to develop a relationship with the other party and with the Democrat who currently is not supporting?
Sure. Well, a couple things. One, I was on the Southern Tier Regional Economic Development Council work group. It was the energy work group. This is in the middle of the fracking debate. It was very controversial. But I worked to build consensus on prioritizing energy efficiency, renewable energy as our strategic priorities. That was challenging, but we got it done. I've worked together with Republican supervisors, Gordon Niffin, Mike Marinaccio on the Boone County Flood Task Force. I've worked with council members of Republicans on issues that they see as priorities. So the last thing is I travel this country. I've been offered jobs on the spot by Republican mayors in other cities. So I have no problem working with Republicans. I just hope the Republicans follow those in other communities and be willing to work with me.
I would say there's a difference between being able to work with someone and being able to deliver results for residents. I have time and time again worked with Democrats in the City Council, Democrats in the county, Democrats in the state to deliver results for residents, and that is something that will continue over the course of the next 4 years.
Thank you. The next question, directed first to Mr. Abdelazim. How do you view the role of Mayor of Binghamton in relation to other levels of government, as far as interacting with the county governments?
2 things. It's to be a champion and an advocate for the residents in our community. And I think we just saw recently that federal policy that could have a profound impact on the health of our economy and the health of many citizens. To suggest that it's a virtue to carry your hand and not be outspoken on federal and state policies, I think is a huge mistake. Right? How many folks understood how traumatizing the Republicans' plans to repeal ACA would have been? Would have been terrible. In the state, there was the debate about fracking. Would it have been a virtue to just sit quietly and silently when 73% of Binghamton residents said that they either supported a moratorium or a ban? Right? I'm not afraid to be a champion or an advocate. And again, when I travel this country, the most impressive mayors are the ones that work on state mayor associations as well as U.S. Conference of Mayors Associations. They build networks, they build relationships. They take the community's priorities into the halls of Albany, into the halls of Washington. That's exactly what I will do.
Mayor David, your thoughts on the role of the Mayor of Binghamton in relation to other governments such as county, state, and federal?
I do think the role of the mayor is to advocate for your community and deliver resources at the state and federal level. And when there are issues that impact Binghamton residents, you should speak out to people, just like I did when President Trump, a Republican, tried to float a proposal to eliminate community development block grant funding. I was one of the first people locally to be out with nonprofit providers, urging people to call Congresswoman Tenney. I called her myself, as well as other elected officials, to advocate for Binghamton. So when there's a direct impact on residents, I have demonstrated that I do that. But the issue is you have to have balance. You have to not take your eye off the ball and neglect your responsibilities for the residents and get things done. And I've been able to do both.
Mr. Abdelazim, rebuttal.
Yeah, I think again we can turn to the flood insurance premiums. In 2010, when those maps went by, I led the effort of the Broome County Flood Task Force to engage Maurice Hinchey and Senator Schumer, and we were able to pause on that, right? The process, I know Rich wants to try to confuse folks, but the process didn't start again until September 2013, 3 months before I left office. The obligation has been on this administration to now move forward with certifying the flood walls in order to protect thousands of property owners from millions of dollars of flood insurance in the coming years.
I'd like to rebut that and say, you know, what you're saying flies in the face of what our county executive, who's a Democrat, and other mayors and supervisors who together have signed on a specific direction, specific plan that we're going with regards to addressing this issue. So if you're going to make accusations about me, all of us are in the same boat. So, including the Democratic County Executive. So I just think that's an interesting dynamic that you want to try to single me out, but all of us are working together. Flood walls don't just exist in the city of Binghamton. It's a countywide issue, and so all of us have signed on to this plan. And you are the only one that said that we shouldn't be moving forward in this direction.
Mr. Abdelazim, a final word on this.
Sure, it's a letter, it's not a plan. It's trying to get some clarity on what mapping analysis you use. But we are responsible for paying for the structural analysis of the flood walls and levees. Not the county, not anybody else. And when the guru of floodplain management at DEC says, Tarik, the first thing I would do as mayor is bring in the firms, get a proposal, get a cost of the project, and move forward in 6 months. You can start the structural sound analysis immediately. And then this other issue about which mapping analysis procedure we use, that's still going through discussion with DEC and FEMA. I'm starting to think that Rich just doesn't understand this, and it's trouble.
Mayor David, 8 items on your to-do list in January.
So you can name call all you want, but in my experience, when you are unable to articulate your position or have your own plan or vision, you just criticize others. It's because you don't have your own direction and agenda. So that's fine, you can go in that direction. There are many things that are a top priority. Public safety is a top priority. Jobs is a top priority. Infrastructure is a top priority. Dealing with quality of life issues in our neighborhoods is a priority. So I will continue to focus on and deliver results for all of the areas that I have over the course of the previous 4 years. We can talk about the rosy rhetoric. We can these debate point counterpoints. But when all of you go home and all of you are going to be in the voting booth, each of us have a record. We have a track record, and I have delivered results for you year after year after year. And the previous administration didn't. In my mind, it really is just that simple. It's about who is lowering your taxes, who's investing in your police department, who's investing in your neglected infrastructure, who's focusing on life, who's dealing with quality of life issues, who's focusing on the economic issues that business owners are dealing with on a regular basis. To me, it's pretty clear. I live downtown, I work downtown, I know many of the members of the business community, and we have all suffered and survived the previous administration, and we just cannot afford to take a step back.
Mr. Abdelazim, if you're successful on November 7th and you are elected the next mayor, what would be the first 3 items on your to-do list in January?
Some of them I've already mentioned. I've signed the city opposite party for the county lawsuit against farm. I would call in the engineering firms to present on the structural analysis of flood walls and what the mayor should be doing is budgeting for that responsibly. He's not. I would host a forum on the joint sewage treatment plant. Does anybody have any idea what's happening down there? No. It is a disaster. We're going to pull the veil of secrecy, and we're going to start planning with property owners about the challenges ahead. Finally, I'm going to set up a task force for a fair tax system. There are properties downtown that are incredibly underassessed. A property that's $18,000, assessed at $18,000, and is generating $40,000 in rental revenue. Now, why is Mrs. Howell, a senior in the first ward who's lived in that house for 50 years, paying more in taxes than someone downtown who's generating $50,000 in revenue? Something's wrong here. And it may be eliminating the 2-tiered system, it may be a full reevaluation, but it will be that committee that will figure it out, because I believe that we need a tax system that works for all of us.
Mayor David?
You know, a lot of this stuff we've heard before. It's about taking ideas off the drawing board and making them a reality. You know, the job of the mayor, you're the ultimate project manager. And so you can talk about all the plans you want, but it's about, you know, who has a track record and experience of delivering results for residents in these areas. And all the issues that I hear about from residents on a regular basis, we have and can point to solid results.
Next question, directed first to Mr. Abdelazim. What character traits do you believe are vital for good leadership, and why?
I think in today's day, absolutely honesty and integrity are top of the list. Whether it's the Buffalo billions, whether it's corruption in Albany, whether it's too many folks in Washington on both sides of the aisle that are bought and sold by billionaires and campaign donors. We need new leadership that is going to be honest and that is going to bring integrity to public service. I think we need a leader that actually has a vision. You can't rally everyone around and marshal resources unless you know where you're going. I don't think we've seen clear direction from Rich. We need to be inspirational, right? We need to be confident. We need to communicate well. I think we've seen plenty of decisions in which there's been mismanagement or incompetence. Issues in which a lot of people's lives have been put at risk. And we need compassion and empathy. I'm not afraid to say that we need a little more love in politics today. Right? It is incredibly troubling to see the level of divisiveness. That's something that I'm going to bring to surface. And finally, we need good judgment. Judgment in hiring the most competent and qualified staff. We've had positions, it's like a turnstile there at City Hall. City engineer position switched hands 5 times. And we need to delegate. I've heard from again and again, SOS emails from City Hall, that if there's 4 more years of this controlled chaos, the next mayor is going to inherit the train.
Mayor David, character traits. What are the most important character traits that you think are vital for good leadership, and why?
I think 2 important ones are empathy and humility. I think empathy, you know, the mayor needs to be able to relate to residents. You know, one of the reasons I focus so much on tax relief is because I understand what it's like to have difficulty paying, you know, these massive taxes that increase under the previous administration. And humility, I think, you know, when you walk into a room, your number 1 focus should not be trying to convince everyone in the room that you're the smartest person when you're not. I think humility is about being able to connect with people, understand, but most importantly, listen to people, inspire people, bring them together.
Mr. Abdelazim, a rebuttal?
Yeah, I agree. That's why we were always out in the neighborhoods fostering civic participation. That's why we were listening to residents and having them define our priorities. This Rich has systematically dismantled just about every citizen opportunity that we created. So there's what you say and there's what you do.
There is what you say and what you do. And what we have done is demonstrate results. And with regards to City Hall, I can tell you that when I went door to door in 2013, one of the number 1 things I heard is people could not wait for a change in administration, or you specifically and the former mayor to lead.
Mr. Abdelazim, a quick rebuttal.
It's just silly.
I didn't get SOS
But
emails.
you see how I brought up a very real point about dismantling citizen boards, the human rights commissions, the shade tree commissions made irrelevant, the public arts commissions then made irrelevant, the youth bureau is gone. You couldn't answer that, right? It's this nonsense about talking about folks that couldn't wait for me to leave. Come on, just answer the question.
Well, I only had 30 seconds, so at a certain point, maybe you'll talk about money that was unspent during your reign as community development and planning director, and why there was $1 million and all these programs that you worked so hard with people in this room and people across this community was left unspent because you can't take ideas off the drawing board and make them a reality. There were programs in place, they were funded, but you couldn't do it. In fact, the federal government came in and took back close to $100,000 in home money because you couldn't get it into the community. Over $1 million you could not get into the community. As our neighborhoods were sinking and struggling and people were struggling, that is a failure right there. You can't hide behind the previous mayor.
Well, interestingly,
I won't hide.
Interestingly, at this point, approximately in the program, we were going to provide an opportunity for the candidates, an optional opportunity, to pose a question to the other candidate. And just before the debate, you both indicated you didn't want to take advantage of that opportunity, but I sense that this would be a good time, Mayor David, to pose a specific question.
You just did.
Okay, and respond to that question regarding community development money.
Folks, vote Tarik.com. I'll make sure it's up tomorrow. It was my transition memo to Rich, and it outlined exactly why there was $1 million in there. You remember the prior administration failed with the Regency Hotel. As they ran out the back door, they handed the keys to a city on fire, and they said, oh yeah, there's $7 million debt that's going to fall on city taxpayers' back with that Regency Hotel. We transformed it into a luxury hotel, but we still had to make payments through our HUD funds. And we didn't know if we were going to make a final negotiation with HUD on a balloon payment that was coming due 2014. So what I did was responsibly manage the finances until we had insurance from them that we could stretch that out another, what was it, 5 years, Rich? Another 5 years. That's why the $1 million is there, because I don't make short-term decisions to serve my political career. I make decisions that are going to protect the long-term health and safety of this community.
Because this money was not in one lump sum area. It was in all the programs that you never were able to get off the drawing board and make a reality. So, I mean, you can spin this fairy tale, and that's really what it is. But there was money left, and all of the programs that you're talking about highlighting is part of your new administration. Many of those programs existed. You created them, you funded them, but you couldn't execute on them. That's the deliver results for residents.
And Mr. Abdelazim, a final rebuttal on this.
Sure. Rich, you've often talked about how you need to be empathetic to others and to address housing needs for all. There has been a project that has been proposed to City Council for months by YWCA, a multi-million-dollar quality affordable housing project to help domestic violence victims and vulnerable women. It has been rejected by Republican City Council. Why did you stand up and advocate for that?
I did stand up and advocate for it. The only reason it got to City Council is because I was the one who brought it down there. You should check your facts, because there's a common theme with regards to this campaign. But there are multiple other housing projects that I'm currently working on.
So you couldn't get 6 Republican council members to support your project?
Well, it was the YWCA's project. I am supportive of it, and council members had objections. So remember that when you try to accuse city council members of being rubber stamps for the mayor, which they're not. They're independent people when they make their own decisions. That's on your website too.
So why did those council members assure those who were moving the project forward just a week before that they would support the project? And then when it was brought down to City Council, there was stone-faced silence.
Why don't you ask them? I'm not one of those council members. Okay. I'm the mayor. I brought the project down.
Yep.
And that's undeniable.
All right. Turned out to be a little more spontaneous and a little more interaction than we originally anticipated with the format to which both candidates agreed. It does bring us to the point where I'll ask each candidate to provide a summation. And Tarik Abdelazim, who had the opportunity to us, will provide his closing statement first.
Yeah, I want to thank the Chamber of Commerce for hosting tonight. I want to thank the moderators and my opponent. I also want to thank all those who came here and those who are watching at home. I did not expect to be here. I was enjoying my current work as a national housing expert, spending more time with my son, 5-year-old king of the tornado. And I was enjoying the extra time supporting my parents who are dealing with their own needs and ailments. But I jumped in July, 4 months before this race, for a key reason. After deep reflections about what happened in November. See, for decades, I believe we allowed democracy to turn into political theater. We care more about performance than policy. We prioritize sound bites over solutions. We celebrate imagery over ideas and implementation. And when our democracy becomes wholly consumed by theater, it has a logical endpoint. And we saw it in November with the election of a billionaire reality TV star who has turned out to be a national embarrassment. We need to reclaim our democracy. It starts at the local level. It starts with every race. We need a new generation of visionary leaders We need politics of honesty and compassion. We need champions of a bold agenda that will work for all of us, not just the connected few. I've met Rich as a candidate perfectly suited for the politics of today. But I am running for mayor to work with you to lead Binghamton into the politics of tomorrow. I hope you saw tonight the difference between rhetoric and record, between imagery and implementation, between sound bites and solutions. I've served my hometown with distinction before, and with your support on November 7th, it will be my tremendous honor to do it again. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Abdelazim. Mayor David, your closing remarks.
Sure, I'd also like to thank the Chamber of Commerce for hosting this debate this evening, my opponent for showing up as well. I think that it's quite fitting, actually, that we are having this debate in this room on the 18th floor of the State Office building, because if you look around in every direction, whether it's downtown, the north side, south side, east side, you can see results, you can see accomplishments that are a result of this administration. And one of the reasons that I ran for office in 2013 is because people were concerned that not enough was happening. They were concerned about the direction that this city was facing. And frankly, yes, they wanted to change the administration. So the concept that my opponent is running for mayor because of the November election, what happens in Washington, kind of illustrates some of the points I've been trying to make tonight. I'm Rich David. I live in Binghamton. I live downtown in a building I purchased 10 years ago, invested in this community. I'm running for mayor because I love and care about this community and was concerned about the lack of attention that Binghamton issues and Binghamton issues and things that weren't being focused on. Over the course of the past 4 years, I've delivered results. So no matter how much rosy rhetoric you hear during the course of this debate and others, my record is clear. We have lowered your taxes. We've invested in your infrastructure. We're demolishing blighted properties. We're doing more now than had been done in the past. And instead of just giving you rhetoric and explanation as to why things happened in the past, we put together plans to address it, to make sure that Binghamton has a solid future. Look at events like Luma downtown. And look what's happening with Binghamton being such a destination from across the region. These things don't just happen by themselves. It takes someone with a vision and a focus on Binghamton to make these things happen. I have delivered results for you. I will continue to deliver results for you. And I appreciate your time tonight.
Mayor Richard David, Tarik Abdelazim, thank you so much for taking time this evening to answer some of the most important questions facing Binghamton residents, Binghamton business owners, and people who love the city of Binghamton. We appreciate your time. Remember, Election Day is coming up in 6 weeks. It'll be November 7th. We thank everybody for being here tonight and being such a wonderful and attentive audience.